Hello guys, let me show you how I created the app. I'll just go down the folders. So my app folder, let's check out the controllers folder. Created a home controller just to test if the application was up and running. Okay, the candidates controller. This is where I have all of my CRUD actions. I have my private methods to search for the candidate and my params. All right. Um, Sessions controller, this is where I create a web token that I use to authenticate the users uh, in the from the front end in the back end. All right, that's pretty standard. Okay, models. I added the friendly ID gem, which I will explain later, and these are the methods that I will validating against, or the fields. There's an option for status where I only want to have three possible options. So this is how I validate those three possible options. My user model, which I created via device, and my JSON web token, which I created via device as well. For the views, I have only two views. This returns the token needed to authenticate users, and this is just another test where I return ID and email of the user visiting from a front end application. All right, so let's go down bin config. One important file here is my initializers, which is the course initializer. I whitelist the production or the development URL as well as the production URL for the front-end application. The friendly gem I spoke about. I think that's it. Oh, one of my initializers is where I set my secret token for the JSON web tokens, right? Or the secret key. I'm sorry. Okay, I think that's that. Nothing special there. I didn't create any tasks. Okay, tests. I created basic tests, controller tests. I tested my index action as well as a create and delete action. I'm logging in the user using the device integration helpers. And the home controller, I'm just testing where we get a response back. I prefer using factories over fixtures, so I added a factory but gem to create my fixture, my factories. This is my candidate factory, my user factory. And let's check out the model tests. I'm checking against the required fields as well as the only three options I wanted on the status field. That's how I check those, and I'm testing for user validation. I first like to test if I created a factory properly, then I can set required fields. Okay, and the gem file, I added JBuilder, the rack course gem, which I talked about earlier, device and device JSON web tokens, and Figaro. Figaro is the gem I use to, or the gem I like using for environmental variables, and I have those in my application YAML file, which I'm not going to show because it contains secret keys. I believe this is everything for the backend. We went over controller models, views, how I authenticate users, and the tests. I believe I covered everything. Now let's head over to the front to the front side application. I just do the same. I'll just go over the folders. Okay, the public folder. I created this file needed in Netlify in order to avoid the 404 page. I updated the favicon. I think that's pretty much about. Oh, I registered the. Well, it's not here. I updated the title and make everything look nice. And the front end. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, let's start with the index file. I registered the service worker in order to create a PWA, which I will show later on. I also added Bootstrap in order to style my application. Let's check out the app file. I am importing all of the files I'm going to need, and to authenticate the user, I'm creating. I'm storing the token in here, right? So this is how I store and how I create the token, and I'm using the context with a provider. So my value of the token and how I get the token are shared within all of these files. And when the first run, this will be empty. So the user will first have to go to the login, and in the login, I just have where is it? Right here. So when the user hits the create the sign in URL with the user with the email and password, I store the token here. All right, and because of the context and the provider, I have option to that method of setting my token as well as the token. So I have the token available in all of the files. This is pretty much a form. You have your email and password. I have an error message if it's incorrect password. That's pretty much. Oh, I also have this check here. If it's logged in, which I turn true here, it will redirect you to the home page. Okay, I'll show you a little bit of my context. I create the context right here, and I also use this method in order to use the context. That's pretty neat. Okay, so spoke about the app, and now let me go to the home. Well, first let me show you a new theory page. It's about straightforward about page using the function component in React. I added a component which is my navbar. I also check if the user is logged in or not. Right here, if it's not logged in, I will display the login. If he is logged in or she is logged in, I will display the logout option. These are my links. When I log out, I like to clear. I set my tokens to nil, and I clear my local storage, and I redirect the user to the login page. And let's jump into the, where is it? Oh, okay, so right here. I named these views or these components as private, and I pass in the component I want to render. And if we take a look at the private file, it only checks if the token exists. If it exists, then the user is authenticated, and if it exists, then I'll render to the component passed in as, where is it? Passed in as the component option, right? If not, I redirect to the login page. And finally, the home page. This is, well, I have not done that. Oops. let's do that instead. Okay, I have several fields for state. I have my methods. This is how I search for the token in order to pass for my different CRUD actions. How I populate my candidates array. I use an Axios request. Oh, I'm sorry, where did it go? I use an Axios request with headers needed in order to be validated in the backend. Okay, and several other methods. This is how I handle deletion of candidates. How I remove from the list. Or here's how I make the actual remove from the database. And this is to handle the front end. This is for my model. Okay, this is how I update the state for my new candidates. How I submit. I created a filter and which pretty much sorts candidates, which I will show in a little bit. And this is the main application right here. I have the models. I have my I'll show this later. Table using the Bootstrap. I have my form to add users or candidates, sorry, and that's pretty much it. I have a check against the submit button, and now let me show you the application. Okay, this is the backend. It redirects to the home controller, and I only render out hello just to test if it's working, if it's up and running. And this is the production front-end application. So let's log in. Okay, so as you can see, I added the message, and I believe, okay, because I'm using a generic password, I get this message. Let's start in the home page. It's pretty simple. About page. Let me show you something first. If I log out and I try to go to the home or about, it redirects me back to the login page. So it's being authenticated against. And I'll make this quick because I think I'm over my time. Okay, so I can add a user, and as you can see, the button is disabled. I add, here's my new candidate. I can sort by pending, if they're still in review, if they passed, or if the user has been declined. And I can remove users as well. I also added a check in order you accidentally clicked on remove, you have to double click and you have to make sure you want to delete that user. And if you can update the status of a user by just selecting a status option, maybe they all should pass, right? And this is updated in the database. You can see everything. It's stored in the back end. And finally, I mentioned before, this is PWA, and it allows you to add the application or store it like a native application. And that's about it, guys.